Hello, everyone. I hope this finds you well. Tonight, I wanted to talk to you about prose poetry. In particular, I wanted to introduce you to this anthology, the Penguin Book of the Prose Poem, from Baudelaire to Anne Carson, edited by Jeremy Noel Todd. It's full of prose poems, poems that really show what you can do with the poetic qualities in prose. For me, a prose poem is still a poem, even though it's not in lines, because it still has the essential ingredients of a poem. It has, on the one hand, intensity or distillation, focus. Gwendolyn Brooks said that poetry is life distilled. And so I think any good poem, whether it's in open field, whether it's in free verse, whether it's a sonnet, whether it's in prose, needs to have some sense of that distillation. The second quality that prose poetry shares with line poetry, with all poetry, I think, is musicality. No, it doesn't usually have meter, and of course, it can't have end rhyme, but it does have a lot of the kinds of repetitions of sound that we come to expect in line poems: partial rhyme, full rhyme, assonance, alliteration, consonants. And whereas the lined poem has the line as a unit, the prose poem has the sentence as a unit and creates musicality out of sentence rhythms. So there are many different approaches to the prose poem. But I think if you haven't written much prose poetry or read much prose poetry before, one of the easiest ways into the form is the object prose poem. And that is, surprise, surprise, a prose poem focused on a single object. And so here is the opening of one poem by Francis Ponge called Rain. I'm just going to read the first few sentences for you. The rain, in the courtyard where I watch it fall, comes down at very different speeds. In the center, it is a fine, discontinuous curtain or mesh, falling implacably but relatively slowly. A drizzle, a never-ending, languid precipitation, an intense dose of pure nectar. So the whole poem, it looks like this, focuses on rain, and it uses the paragraph as you would a stanza in a lined poem. You see here the kind of stanza breaks. Here's another by Francis Ponge called Crate. Halfway between crib and cage, the French language places crate, a simple slatted box for transporting those fruits that fall ill at the least lack of air. Built in such a way that it can be broken down effortlessly after use, it is never used twice. It is really more perishable than the deliquescing foodstuffs that it carries. On the corners of streets that lead to the markets, it gleams like white wood without wood's vanity. Still very new, and slightly surprised to find itself in this awkward position, having been thrown into the gutter without hope of retrieval, it remains a most likable object, on whose fate we will not dwell for long. So, in those two object prose poems, Francis Ponge focuses on very everyday items. He focuses on the rain. He focuses on a crate, and helps us by kind of focusing in on them and describing them more intensely, more precisely than we're used to. It gives it a vividness. It gives us a sense of seeing the object anew. So that's your exercise, is to write a poem in prose about an object. You could write about a very everyday object, a fence post, a shop front, a glove you find in the road, right? Or I've got one alternative for you. as an extraordinary object, if you prefer. You ready? This is a mask from Sumatra, which I bought at an African crafts shop in LA when I was 20. And my husband, when I moved in with him, wouldn't let me put it on the wall because he thought it was too scary looking. But I think it's amazing. I feel like the intensity of expression on it, um, and also slight ambiguity about what emotion it's actually expressing. Really interesting. So here we go. If you'd like to write your object prose poem about this mask, I'd love to see it. Or if you'd like to go with something very ordinary, bookmark, watch, cracker, but really see it. See it with a specificity of language, with visualization, with details about texture, smell, taste if it's applicable, so that we really experience the object in a way that we feel we might not have experienced it before, or more intensely than we have before. Good luck.